Podcast with Tek and Prem.
The Eagles are the number one ticket in town, the most talked about thing at nearly every moment. With that amount of attention, you better be ready to overcome the lows that will happen. Yes, they will let you know when you are not performing well, but they will also love you if you show effort, aggression, desire, the will to fight. They will love you in this city if you love it the way you love your brother. If you don't like what the fans and media are saying as a player, it's very easy. Love them, treat them like your brothers, and go out and play your balls off.
It's the Vet Alumni Podcast. I'm Tek. He's Prem. Football is back. It's a very special game day edition of the show. We'll be joined by Breland Moore in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
It's Birds, Packers, Friday Night Lights, live from Brazil.
South American football.
I mean, look, you got to be pumped. You got to be pumped. This is it. I would be lying if I said this season kind of crept up on me and I'm not fully ready, but I'm getting ready.
Well, how often are you going to have Friday Night Lights that's not a high school tilt?
Right. You're not. You're not going to have that.
It's very rare, but I will say this. I'll just dive right into it, Tek. Birds 30, Packers 26. I think Jalen accounts for 3 touchdowns. And I think our guy Jahan Dotson actually has a nice long catch that is kind of pivotal at some point in single coverage.
Really?
People are glossing over the fact, maybe you're going to get to it, I'm sure we'll get to it with Breland, the Packers don't have one safety on their roster that was on their team last year. Let that sink in.
Wow.
So that's the difference in the game to me, because both quarterbacks are solid. Both passing attacks are solid. The Eagles have a retooled secondary as well. Quinyon Mitchell probably going to be in for 95% of the snaps. We know that now.
Yeah, we know that now.
The truth is, I like our chances in a game with Smitty and AJ and Dallas against all new safeties. Now, I know one of them, Xavier McKinney. He has experience against Jalen and Devontae playing on the same team at Alabama.
Yeah.
But still, I think the Birds get the W. I think the people that are talking about the Birds are going to lose. I think the Packers are a little too overhyped. This happens every year. There's a team that's like a little too overhyped.
They are.
I think they're slightly overhyped here.
I would agree with you. Look, I'm not going to lie to you.
Nationally.
I do have this circled on my schedule as a loss. But
you're on the fence, though.
But here's the deal. I don't know that it's a loss. I just had it circled as a loss.
Right.
Because of multiple factors. First of all, the international factor.
It's a big one. It's a big one.
Yeah, and the Packers are a tough team to defend. Not necessarily their defense, their offense. I believe that we'll see the defense struggle to stop Josh Jacobs. Romeo Doubs might not play, but they still have Christian Watson.
And you know what? Jaden Reed he's a playmaker, that kid.
That's what I'm saying.
I like Jaden
They
Reed.
got playmakers on offense. They got a really good quarterback.
They do.
I'm not going to dismiss their offense. They're going to be tough to stop. Our fans are going to be pulling their hair out on watching this defense, at least for the first half of this game.
You know what the difference is? Yeah, but you know what the difference is, in my opinion, between the expectations and the perceptions going in for the Eagles and what I think we're going to get? I think this secondary is going to be way better than people realize. I think just the talent level. You're talking about Quinyon Mitchell and CJ out there for every snap. I know Quinyon's a rookie, but his natural instinct, his natural ability, it's legitimate. These guys are going to be better on the back end than I think people realize. I
think this is going to be a tough, close game, and I got it to be a 4-point swing.
Just like I do.
Probably going the other way, right?
Okay, all right. Well, we'll see what it is.
But either way, even if the Birds win, I got it to be about a 3-4 point game.
Yeah, it has to be.
Whether it's 31-27 or something like that. One of those.
I don't know.
Games,
I could see them winning by a touch.
28.
I could see the Birds winning by a touch too. I can see it.
Listen, anything is possible.
Presently, they are 2-point favorites, which is a pick 'em.
Right. That's how I feel about this game. There's multiple factors involved that make me feel like it could go either way. Listen, just and let me get this straight too, because this is also a rare thing you'll hear from me, is that even if I feel like this is a loss, This ain't the end of the world. I got their ceiling at 12 wins with this as a loss.
Right, so this could unlock 13 in your paradigm.
Or it means that they'll lose a game like Cleveland
that's always going to happen.
One of the Washington games.
You're going to lose a game you're not supposed to lose. Tech, I got a tidbit for you.
That's what I think.
Did you know?
Yeah.
This is a rematch of the 1960 NFL Championship game. Did you know that is also the only playoff loss in Vince Lombardi's coaching career?
Wow.
Rematch of that one.
There you go. I like that tidbit.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That's a good one. All right, let's get to the details we already mentioned, but Devin White is out.
Really odd, man.
It was brought to light that the depth chart had Devin White listed behind Nakobe Dean. So now they're saying Nakobe was always going to be the week 1 starter. I'm not buying it. Devin Williams got $3 million guaranteed on signing. He was brought here absolutely to be the starter. He was going to be the starter. And then lo and behold, a report comes out that they actually tried to trade Devin White. Apparently, Howie and Vic Fangio were not in sync with this signing. It was a Howie signing. Howie called Devin White and said, I'm surprised you don't have many suitors. You know, I feel like I have to have a bounce back season. I'm feeling like you're the player equivalent, a guy who needs to bounce back. They had this positive conversation. They hung up. And Devin White was like, I knew I was going to Philly. This was a Howie Roseman signing that I don't think Fangio was completely on board with.
Yeah.
So, look, he gets hurt, and now all of a sudden they're unearthing all this, that he wasn't going to be the week 1 starter anyway, that Nakobe beat him out for that job. Now, listen, he might have outperformed him in camp. He might have outperformed him in some of those preseason games. I will say this. You don't pay a guy $3 million guaranteed to come and back up that spot. He came to be the Mike linebacker on this defense.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things. This happens frequently with the Eagles franchise, right? You get these weird stories, and it's like there's all kinds of debate over what's really happening behind the scenes.
Right.
What happened?
He tweaked his ankle. Well, I don't know how serious that is.
It could be phantom. It could be phantom injury.
Yeah, I mean, look, a tweak keeps him out week 1 in a national spotlight international game.
I will say this: now, I'm no NFL player. The guys that know me know I'm 5'5", okay, and I'm 150 pounds soaking wet. But I will say this, Tech: when I was playing ball for years, for at least like 5 years of my life while playing baseball. You know, I had this weird thing in my ankle that I'd always feel it for 5 years.
Right.
And it was like on certain movements, I knew certain lateral movements, I was going to feel this weird twinge in my ankle. So that's a odd.
It's a real thing.
It's an odd spot, and I'm not a professional athlete.
And it's like Bryce Harper, who's always got something. Always got something. He's never 100%. Even the first week of the regular season, he ain't 100%. There's something.
These guys are warriors, though. And with Bryce, he said it yesterday. He said it yesterday. There you go. That's baseball.
Yeah, I mean, that's a different sport.
Your favorite
Yeah,
phrase.
Exactly. But that's a different sport. Football is a more brutal, barbaric sport where these guys, they got to put on pads. They got to bash into each other going 50 miles an hour. Yeah. It's a whole different kind of thing.
Bryce could play football.
But you know what? I'm not going to put anything past Bryce.
Bryce could play
He's
linebacker.
Like a superhuman.
He's like a linebacker type of thing.
Yeah, he could
but
be like
speaking
Cooper
of that,
DeJean,
since you brought it up, Bryce spoke on his elbows. He said, it's the constant kind of thing where, you're going to feel it sometimes. It can't get more injured or worse, more injured or less injured. Just it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's going to be what it is, and that's just the truth.
Absolutely. I believe that. And look, in football, guys are going to tweak things and pull things. Normally, they play through a tweak. They play through a tweak unless it's worse than a tweak, unless the head coach is just trying to, minimize the damage.
Yeah, which is typical.
But, nevertheless, we're going to see what Nakobe's got in real action against, by the way, a tremendous offense.
Yo, Josh Jacobs he's no slouch.
And you're going to need to stop Josh Jacobs. Nakobe Dean is going to have to chase him down. He's going to have to stop the run. And I don't know. We might see a little bit of Jeremiah Trotter, who I'm
fine with that.
I didn't think we were going to see any Trotter defensive impact for at least half the year.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be special teams, and they were going to kind of ease him in. You were going to see him in a package here and there. But now,
on run stopping downs, you might be
now.
in.
I think you're going to see him get an opportunity.
I like it, though. You know what? This game is phenomenal because you have recent like college All-Americans on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs.
Oh, yeah.
Did he win the Heisman, Jacobs, right?
Did he?
He was either a Heisman runner-up or a Heisman winner.
I know he is phenomenal. I loved him. He was one of the guys when everybody was yelling Derrick Henry, I was saying, I want Josh Jacobs.
He's a little more versatile.
Yes. I mean, I'm not mad at Saquon, but Saquon wasn't a guy that I wanted.
I know. That's ironic, right? But now we're excited for what it's going to look like.
We're excited, yeah. I mean, how could we not be? I mean, it is what it is. We have long accepted it to be what it is. And the guy, look, I'm not taking anything away from him. Saquon's tremendous, and I'm sure he'll be good. But look, I already prepare mentally to be without him for like a minimum of 4 games every year.
See, that's the problem. That's what you don't want to see. But
right.
Luckily, I think with Shipley back there,
I like
man,
Shipley.
You don't worry as much. But it's really the one thing that this season comes down to. It's very simple. It isn't the defense. It isn't Saquon Barkley. Is Jalen Hurts going to play at an MVP level? And if he is, then these other things are actually kind of peripheral because you're going to score 35 points a game.
Right.
The defense can be below average, give up 29 points, and you still win games.
Yeah, it comes down to Jalen Hurts.
That's it, man. It's that. If he is MVP caliber,
he's got all the weapons. There's no excuses.
There's no excuses. The only excuse that anybody could try to prefabricate for him is the O-line.
Yeah, I get it. That's a question mark. The O-line, by the way, both lines to me are a question mark at this point.
I don't know. Jalen Carter's on that defensive line.
I get it, but
I'm
after what I saw in the preseason, even when Carter was out there, I know they put Carter out there in that first game, and they just got steamrolled. I did not love what I saw. And look, I don't know. I need to see them get to the quarterback. We'll see. I mean, look, this is a test. This is going to be a test. Green Bay's got a pretty decent defensive line.
They do.
They're
no slouches.
Offensive line.
But
they're on both sides. Both their lines are solid. I question a little bit on our O line and D line a little bit. I got to see what they can do coming out.
Difference in this game, Tek, I'll say it again, is going to be the Packers secondary.
All right.
I really believe that. I know McKinney's a good player, but when you are back there and you're playing live action, fast-paced regular season football with a new group of guys like that.
Yeah.
And every position is basically new back there at safety. I don't know, man. I'm skeptical that they're going to be able to stop the elite wideouts that we have. With this, the millisecond of communication is the difference.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
I think that's the difference, man. I hope I'm right, obviously. We want to see a Birds win.
Yeah, because the explosiveness of this offense, I expect points to be scored. Now, let's flip to the defense. We talked about Devin White. Isaiah Rodgers, you mentioned it before that we're going to see more Mitchell. He's out with the hand injury. This is a much bigger blow, I feel like, but we'll see Mitchell and Ringo probably split snaps on the outside, and then Mitchell and Maddox probably splitting snaps in the slot. So you're going to see Mitchell almost all game.
And you're going to see,
moving back and forth.
You probably see DeJean in some Joker situations.
Maybe. I think maybe they're going to just throw him into the fire.
You have to.
Based on what I saw from DeJean in that preseason game, last preseason game that he played, I would slow walk him. I think he is young. He made some really bad mistakes that you cannot make in this Packers game.
True.
And I hesitate to just throw him out there week one because of an injury. I kind of lean on Maddox, who's been around forever. I lean on Mitchell, who's my stud, and Slay, and Ringo. Ringo's proven himself to be a solid guy. I kind of got to lean on these guys, and if I need DeJean, I go to him. But I don't know that I'm going to throw him into the fire just yet. They might.
That's fair. That's fair.
They might just throw him into the fire.
I just like his instincts.
Yeah.
I think he has instincts.
I almost, and I hate to say this, I almost think I go like Ricks before DeJean based on
Ricks has real game
into
experience. Absolutely.
Right. And
Ricks has that. He has that ball hawk mentality, Eli Ricks.
Yeah, and
he does.
Do I love him? No, I'd much rather see DeJean, but I just this is too crucial of a spot to just throw DeJean in to see what he's got. I want to ease him in a little more, but they might not have the luxury of easing him in.
And the pass rush is the key. We know that.
Yeah. They might have to throw him into the fire. They might have to in some situations, in some packages that maybe they weren't expecting. Maybe they thought Mitchell could be in that, and because Mitchell has to be on the outside for certain packages with Rodgers out. Now they have to go to DeJean instead of Maddox. I don't know.
Well, the dime packages, if they have to go to a quarter package, you might see him.
I would actually lean more on CJ too because he can play that position.
That's a wild card there, man.
He's a hybrid player too. People forget.
Love it.
He's a slot guy.
That's a difference maker.
He's
man.
a difference maker.
That's a key thing.
Yeah.
That I think even our fan base is forgetting when I look at our Eagles Twitter and all that.
You're right about that.
It's understated. This kid is a Pro Bowl caliber safety.
We've forgotten about him because, yes, he's another guy who's often injured, and you almost mentally prepare for him to miss games too. But listen, he's coming in healthy. He was hurt in training camp too. He missed practices, but a lot of guys did. I look at it like he's a proven guy. He's going to come in, and you know what he can do when the ball's in the air. He gravitates towards it. So he's one of those guys that if I have to lean on him in the slot, I'm going to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it breaks my safety protection a little bit, I'm gonna lean that way.
And I want to see Fangio get creative. I want to see some secondary blitzes, man.
I was just about to say it's all about Fangio, his packages, his schemes, what he sees, what he's gonna do, what he saw from the Packers on tape. Which ain't much because every year, week 1, week 2, week 3, the first 3 weeks of a season are like, these up in the air kind of weeks.
I know.
Because you don't know. I mean, coming out of year after year, offensive coordinators are smart. They change up their schemes and their things.
True.
So who knows? He's looking at tape from last season. It might not fully apply. What you can check is tendencies from the quarterback and the protection of the quarterback. You can check those tendencies, but you can't plan for the play calls and certain things. Yeah, there might be some things that Jordan Love always does, and you can see that on the film, and you can react accordingly. But I don't know.
It's the decision making in the heat of the moment, that really makes the difference for the quarterback, at least.
Vic, just like you said, Vic's gonna have to get creative with these packages because it's not like, look, to be honest, yes, Devin White is a loss. So for everybody like, oh, Jacoby's going to start anyway. Devin White, who cares? He was benched last year, and if defense got better in Tampa when
Devin
he got
White
benched.
is a veteran.
It's like Devin White's a veteran. It's a change of scenery philosophy. You got to believe it.
Yes,
and he's coming in. He's
yes.
a kind of guy who can shore up some spots in the middle of that defense. And him being out, it is a situation. Look, you got Jacoby, who had a great camp, and he's got a lot to prove.
It's exciting,
he has
man.
a lot to prove.
It's exciting. We're getting Jacoby in week 1 this year, really what we expected last year.
Yes.
But I think that extra year makes a big difference.
I was really hyped to see both Devin White in this defense and Isaiah Rodgers in this defense. So Rodgers is the bigger blow for me because I was really looking forward to seeing Rodgers back there
I like
opposite Slay.
I like him. You know what, though? Once these guys are healthy and everyone's rolling, if you just steal this win, you're looking at like 4-0 out the chute.
I think you could be. And the one thing that people have to be cautious about, and I know it's a home game and it's going to be the bright lights. It's a big national game. Everybody's going to love it.
Home game.
That Monday night game, though, against Atlanta, coming home next week.
It's Kirk Cousins.
I know, but that Atlanta team is so vastly improved. They are a very good team, and you can't just discount them they're the Falcons of old.
You can't.
And by the way, Kirk Cousins, we beat him a lot. But
he's a good quarterback.
He's a good quarterback, and he's a tough out. I mean, we don't.
He is.
We don't.
And they have playmakers.
Yeah, we've both blown him out and have had close games with him. So
and he's beaten us.
He's beaten us. Yeah. I mean, more recently we've beaten him more.
Yeah, that game. Here's the thing. I got to see what that Atlanta team looks like in week 1. Really,
I do too. Because
you really got to see.
You mentioned overhyped teams, and right now they are severely overhyped by all the experts and pundits. At least from what I see on paper, I could be wrong. I wouldn't sleep on them, but I don't think they're a top 4 team in the NFC.
Michael Penix is starting by week 11.
I would say so.
Week 11, I think.
And that's
Penix
either by performance or injury.
Right. Well, yeah, right, because it's Cousins.
It's one or the other.
Cousins is like the new age Steve Young with the concussions.
And that's why they took Penix. I thought it was a clueless move, but now I get it. I just didn't get. You paid Kirk Cousins all this money, and I'm debating here all the time with Gene over here at the store about the Cowboys.
You don't say.
About Dak Prescott, right?
Oh, this guy.
He would not pay Dak Prescott, and I keep telling him, look at the money Kirk Cousins got. Dak, you got to pay Dak Prescott. Look by the numbers. By the numbers, Dak Prescott is at the bottom of the elite tier, but he's not really elite to me.
No,
but
he's very good. He's very good.
His numbers put him at the top of the second tier and at the very bottom of that elite tier. And he's going to get, you got to pay him. You got to pay him.
Dakota Fanning Prescott.
Yeah. All right, we'll hit the vet line and bring in Breland Moore to get really hyped about this game tonight in Brazil. But first, brought to you by the Fairless Hills Academy of Music, it's time for VetPhact.
This is a VetPhact.
Well, Tek, the Rich Kotite-led Eagles on September 6th, 1992 would see Jim Mora bring in the New Orleans Saints playoffs. Jim Mora, the Birds would get the squeak by victory, 15-13. They led at the half 9-6, 63,513 fans packed the Vet.
They got 2 more field goals. That was a field goal game for the Eagles?
Yeah, very odd. Well, they had a first quarter Herschel Walker 2-yard touchdown pass from Randall Cunningham. They must have missed the extra point because it was 6-0. And then it was 6-3, and then it was by half it's 9-6. The only second half scoring at that point for the Birds came on a Fred Barnett 20-yard touchdown pass from Randall, and they would then, I guess they tried to go for 2 probably and didn't get it because it was 15-6 at that point.
Or maybe they missed the extra point again. Was the 2-point conversion in the game at that point? I don't think it was.
I believe it was.
Was it in the Kotite era?
I think it was. So Randall on the day,
Wow.
167 yards, 2 TDs, no interceptions. Herschel Walker, 26 totes for 112 yards, just a workman-like day.
Loved
He
Herschel.
also added 4 grabs for 30 yards, including that touchdown in the first quarter. The Saints had a horrible day from quarterback Bobby Hebert. 12 for 30, 156 yards, 2 INTs, just a horrendous day. The Birds' defense, run defense, was stifling. They held lead running back for the Saints, Vaughn Dunbar, to 27 yards.
Hey, Vaughn Dunbar, pretty good.
On 11 carries. The defense really, this era was personified by the Eagles' defense.
Yes, of course.
We know that. You had Wes Hopkins with an interception.
Oh, yeah.
You had Andre Waters with an interception. Our guy, Seth Joyner, recording a sack on the day. The Birds would start the season at the Vet with the close victory over the New Orleans Saints by a score of 15-13 in an era where there was a lot of excitement around the club, kind of like we have now. A team that was expected to go to Super Bowls that unfortunately didn't for a variety of reasons. One being the Fog Bowl, of course. Remember that?
Yes.
Probably the peak of that era, that
the Fog
club.
Bowl.
Because this was Kotite at this point. Buddy's first year gone.
Right.
But there you have it. September 6th, 1992, 15-13. Birds over the Saints.
Fantastic. Look, not much Phillies to talk about. It's game day for the Birds. We will get to the Phils next week. We'll have Phillies reporter Scott Lauber from the Inquirer. He is the man. And look, the Phils, they're going to be closer to that magic number next week.
Yeah, they're on the hunt for that top seed, tied with the Dodgers as we start today, this beautiful Friday.
Yeah.
And it's just going to come down to these last 22 games. Are the Dodgers better than the Phillies, or the Phillies better than the Dodgers? Bottom line, though, with some games against the Brewers left, it's pretty safe to say they should lock the number 2 up at least.
Yeah, well, look, I want the number 1.
So do I, Tek.
We'll see Seth Johnson this week make his debut
I want to see what
weekend.
the kid's got. He's actually been lights out in AAA for the Phils.
I can't have any more Phillips or any of these. I can't have any more of that.
Horrendous.
No more of that.
Horrendous.
Ridiculous. All right, let's hit the vet line. Breland Moore is set to join us to talk about this game next.
Vet Alumni. And now, it's the Vet Line.
Why don't you answer your phone?
Joined now on the Vet Line by Breland Moore, Fox 29 Philadelphia anchor and co-host of the Fantastic Sports Show, our good friend.
Guys!
Yeah, Bree, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm super pumped to be here.
We're excited to have you as always, and we're really excited for the Birds to kick off the 2024 season. A lot of expectation, a lot of excitement. We'll go right into it. What happens tonight in Brazil? Do the Birds come out with a win, and how does it happen?
I think so, but this is a really interesting matchup, and I feel like people sometimes like to make too much of a first game, right? Yeah. There's a lot of very strange little extra things that we're little unknowns. Let's put it that way. First of all, they're in Brazil. There's a foreign country. They had to take an 11 and change hour flight. So that's a variable that we have no idea how that's going to affect. Also on top of it, there's so much newness to this game. So I think we're going to see a lot of adjustments. 2 new coordinators on the Eagles side, of course, a lot of new personnel as well on the Eagles side, especially on that defense. And then you look at the Packers, and they also, obviously Jordan Love is returning, but they also have a new defensive setup going on there. They have a new defensive coordinator who has never been a coordinator in the NFL. They also, I know this is a very sneaky thing, they have a new kicker as well. He's a rookie. He's a rookie who's never kicked in a professional game.
I love it.
Even that could be a variable. So I think this is going to be a game. We're going to see a lot of adjustments. We're going to see a lot of just kind of figuring things out. Neither team had their starters play at all, or if they did play, it was very, very limited during the preseason. So definitely going to be a very interesting feel to it, I think. But I am very confident that the Eagles are going to come home 1-0.
I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. I think it's maybe a 4 to 7 point win, actually. I know Tek's kind of on the fence, as he usually is.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, the defense now for the Birds, we know there's been a last-minute juggle here with Devin White being ruled out, Isaiah Rodgers being ruled out. I tend to lean on the side of this secondary is better than people are giving it credit for out the gate. I think they're going to impress us. Where do you stand on that?
I absolutely agree with you. So, with Isaiah Rodgers out, you touched on that. He has the hand issue. That was something that kind of crept up. The Devin White thing we knew about earlier in the week, but the Isaiah Rodgers thing was a last-minute adjustment, as you had mentioned. So that leads me to believe that Keely Ringo will step into that spot. Keely has done quite well throughout the course of the preseason and during training camp. He had a great camp. So I think he will be fine. But I feel like people are overlooking the fact that the defense got a major boost, not only with the 2 draft picks who are young. Quinyon Mitchell looked phenomenal during his time during camp. He was all over the place. Had so much thrown at him, playing everywhere, and embraced that challenge. And the veterans had nothing but nice things to say about him. Obviously, Cooper DeJean a little behind the 8 ball there because of the injury issue. But I have no doubts that he's going to catch up to speed too. But CJ Gardner-Johnson returning, I think is huge. Reed Blankenship was all over the field last year. He was the team's leading tackler, which, we can talk about linebacker and what goes on up front as well. But in that secondary, he was basically kind of doing it all at that point. A safety, it's quite literally in the name. A safety should not be your leading tackler. No. That help that he has with the rest of the secondary being boosted here with the 2 high profile draft picks and with CJ Gardner-Johnson, who, while injury prone, there was a noticeable difference 2 years ago when CJ was on the field versus when he was not. And I think he's a huge game changer back there. Plus, you also have, Vic Fangio in charge of all of it. And I trust Vic a lot more than whatever in the world was going on last year.
Me too. But,
so I think they're quite capable.
Likewise.
Sticking with Devin White, he's out with the ankle tweak. All of a sudden, they're saying he was never going to be the starter. Nakobe beat him in camp. Another report surfaced about them trying to actually trade Devin White. How much of a role is Devin White going to have with this team moving forward, if any?
Well, I think that remains on Nakobe Dean, really and truthfully, because Nakobe, keep in mind, he's been rehabbing. He's been trying to get himself back. He was not available essentially until the last minute of those spring sessions. He had 6 weeks to get himself ready to go for training camp. And it was a very much a sprint to get himself in shape, to get himself football ready. And so I think they obviously needed to bring someone in to see if Nakobe was capable of doing that. But Nakobe Dean has been their guy. They keep him around despite his injury and everything else because they believe in what caliber player he is. This is a make or break year for him, though. If he cannot rise to that occasion, then, it remains to be seen what Devin White's role is going to be. But I really, truly think this is hinging all on whether Nakobe Dean can step up and have that year that, from my impressions, the Eagles coaching staff and the Eagles front office think he's capable of.
It's his time to shine. Yeah, it's his time to shine.
This is a tough game for him. The matchups are brutal. He's got to stop Josh Jacobs.
Yeah,
I know. So not necessarily the best matchup to have that I'm him type of game, but hopefully we will be seeing flashes of it. And keep in mind, as much as Nakobe Dean is going to be struggling, there's going to be some boys on that Packers defense that is going to have quite the time dealing with what we've got going on too. So I think either way you put it, there's going to be a lot of testing, and that defense, like I said, brand new coordinator who's never been an NFL coordinator before. They went from a 3-4 to a 4-3. So there's a lot of adjustments going on there too. So don't be surprised if you see mishaps going on both sides. It wouldn't shock me, but hopefully Nakobe and everyone else can kind of rise to the occasion just a little bit better than the Packers can.
Yeah. 30-26, Bree. 30-26 Birds.
He's already got the predict. He's already got the.
That's your prediction?
30-26. Let's go.
I also see it being a 3 or 4 point game. I'm not sure.
I was saying in my brain like 27-24.
Okay.
That's a good score.
That's a good score.
That's a good score. I'm somewhere between 27 and 31 points. It's like one of those for the Eagles, and I think they either win by 3 or 4 or lose by 3 or 4. And this is one of those games, a rare game for me, where if they lose this game, it's not the end of the world. It's like what you said in the beginning. There's a lot of unknowns, a lot of strange, bizarre newness factors, and there's going to be some growing pains to it. I can't see them coming in this offense and it just running smooth like a Lamborghini right out the gate. You want it to.
I mean, look, Jalen Hurts is on a mission, and I believe in this guy.
Listen, I believe in the kid. I think he's gonna bounce back this year. I just feel like this is going to be you didn't see them at all in the preseason.
That's true.
They got to kind of gel and get it together. And who knows how much gelling they've done in the practices, in camp. But maybe that's all they needed to do. But they're going against a really good, really overhyped team here.
Yeah, I do think that the Packers are slightly overhyped nationally, Brie.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Jalen Hurts is getting a lot of slack for no reason. Anybody who's anybody, looking at Twitter just during the last couple of games of the year, especially during that playoff game when the Eagles were the only team playing at that time and all eyes were on the Eagles, every single person, you get the LaShawn McCoys and the Westbrooks and whatnot on Twitter, but then you're also getting everyone else from around the league going, what in the world what kind of system are the Eagles running right now? This is garbage. You're putting your best offensive players in a terrible position. And so I think, the flashy thing to do is to criticize the quarterback. Yeah. When it was, in my opinion, very much a system issue. So I am very confident in the fact that they're able to do things. Another thing that you guys touched on is the bonding and the gelling. I really do think the fact that they had those joint practices with New England and was running the ones constant. I mean, Nick Sirianni said that they got so much work up there.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps because it puts them in an in-game scenario during practice without having them actually have to be in an in-game scenario where guys are fighting for their jobs and, potentially injuring them. So that really helped. And I also just kept hearing this one word over and over and over again throughout the course of training camp. And it was accountability, specifically player-led accountability. And the way that they have approached this season and the way that they have started to communicate with each other, I think is light years ahead of where they were last year. Lane Johnson said to me, we didn't have any training camp fights, but if you ever see us pull a guy over in any, any phase of the ball. If you see a player pull another player over, we're calling them out. We're calling a miscommunication out. We're fixing things going on. And we didn't necessarily do that a lot last year, but we obviously see what happens when miscommunications and when people miss assignments and when things aren't the way that they need to be. We see what happens. What happens is last year, right? And we don't want to have that anymore. And so there's a big player-led drive because the coaches, the guys are saying the coaches can only do so much. It's up to us to make sure that we also hold each other accountable and hold ourselves accountable. And that attitude shift, I think, really, really is good. Now let's see if it plays out on the field, of course, but the building blocks are all there, I think, for a very successful season. My goodness, you have the roster of dreams, especially on the offense. And I mean, hopefully everything comes together, but I think you're right. If they lose this first game, I'm not going to be beat up about it. I'm going to look at how they lose, and that determines how upset I am. But I really think to get a feel for this team, we have to give them the first 4 weeks, up until the bye. Then I'll make my decision.
Yeah, because the schedule lightens up a bit. I mean, after this, you get 2 very winnable games, in my opinion, with Atlanta and New Orleans. I know New Orleans historically has been a house of horrors.
And Tampa, all 3 of these games are games, though. I mean, they're not like steamroll wins. They're not gimmies. They're going to be tough games, especially that Atlanta game, Monday night.
Well, Andy Reid always says the parody of the NFL is so great, there's no gimme games, right?
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah,
Big Red is rarely wrong.
Yes, you mentioned talking to Lane Johnson. The O-line is the only question mark for me. I see they signed Jack Driscoll this week, which lets you know they have question marks about the depth.
Well, he knows the system. He knows Stoutland,
Right. So I'm a little concerned really about both lines, but the O-line more so than the D-line. So many injuries. Is there any concern in your mind about the O-line, especially in pass protection?
Yeah, I think you really hit it right there. The depth is a little bit concerning. So it's nice to see. Hey, welcome back, Jack Driscoll. I love that. The thing that's giving me kind of a little more of a woosah is the fact that we do have veterans there that are still, I mean, I'm not saying Cam Jurgens is not a veteran. I'm talking about like Lane Johnson still being there and still kind of steering the ship here, but also letting the younger guys have a more of a leadership role. And from what I hear, they feel very confident in, I mean, what are they else are going to say, really? But they feel very confident in themselves. The communication has been really great. Their practices have been harder than last year. The conditioning on both sides has been completely ramped up and hoping to avoid injury. So there has been, like you said, a little bit of an issue when it comes to people sitting out at training camp and whatnot. And, the injury reports are a little concerning. We'll see how it goes. I very much am looking forward mostly to seeing how Cam Jurgens fully steps into that role. He was handpicked. He was handpicked by Jason Kelsey.
Yes.
I think a lot of people forget that because they're like, oh my God, he's got big shoes to fill. Well, he's been under some really great tutelage and he wouldn't have been handpicked if he wasn't up to the occasion.
He's got some of those same moves too. The way he rolls out. In run blocking.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's the key. The thing is going to be the pre-snap reads because that's the cerebral part of the game.
Yeah.
And that's not something that can always be taught. That is more instinctual, in my opinion. I know that Kelsey probably was teaching him how he identifies things, but that's that's crucial. When teams are disguising what they're doing. And like you mentioned earlier with the new coordinator in Green Bay, it's not only going to be disguised, but it's going to be stuff that maybe they haven't even seen on tape yet.
Correct.
Because it's a whole new system. But, I think that ultimately the O-line will be okay, but there will be growing pains. I think you're right on that. Yeah, there will be.
Yeah. And I think there's going to be, there's growing pains everywhere except special teams. Like, what's Jake Elliott gonna do? You know what I mean?
I know, and Britton Covey too.
Britton Covey. He's living his best life in Brazil. I don't know if y'all have seen his social media posts, but he's having a ball. He said he's got so many people because he and his wife are like big travelers, and he's got a ton of people coming to the game. They were trying to find Eagles gear, but they had to do it a wonky way. So they were trying to see if they could eBay buy the stuff. Anyway, he's got like about a dozen people who live in Brazil coming to see him, which is super cool. So he's living his best life. But yeah, I think special teams is obviously very solid. It's a lock. I think Britton Covey was incredible last year. So I'm not worried about them, but I think you guys are right. I think that's the theme of, going back to what I had said in the beginning, the theme of this game is adjustments and growing pains. And we'll figure out this team's identity as they figure it out, because they don't even really know. But the same story can be written about the Packers and probably about most teams in the NFL, except for maybe Kansas City.
I know.
And those, heavy hitters that retain the majority of their rosters and have no changes because no one leaves. The key is just letting them kind of figure it out, and hopefully they do, and quickly. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting experience, I think, watching.
Always is.
Speaking of the Brazil experience, does the international factor excite you or frustrate you as a fan, knowing that they lose a true home game because of it?
Yeah.
I actually like it.
Nice.
I think people who are poo pants about the losing a game, you guys got a game because the NFL added an extra game. So in years past, you wouldn't have even had this game anyway. So what does it matter? So that's kind of how I look at it. It's like, whatever. That was the way things used to be back in the day. We didn't have that one extra game on the schedule. So just take the one extra game and put it somewhere else. So I like it. I think it's really point. Yeah,
I'll roll with you on that. All right.
What? Yeah.
I'll roll with it.
Okay. I mean, a lot of people are unhappy, but it's also just like, okay, you can just revert your brain back to a couple years ago when this was the way things always were. But I think it's great for the NFL. I think Jordan Mailata made a really good point that, as an Australian player, you didn't really get exposure to the game, and he kind of had to find it in his own way. And things like this allow athletes and children and fans of the game to be exposed to it, because even if they're not necessarily NFL fans at the moment, having something like this, you're going to be curious. You're going to want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So,
good point.
To be able to spread the game to South America, I think is a really great opportunity, and it might lead to players coming through the International Player Pathway program at some point in time, trying to find this. I talked to, this is in Kansas City, but I talked to someone who worked within the league, who was a kicker for a college team in the Midwest. And he told me that he found out about the NFL through YouTube. He was watching Terrell Owens highlights. He just came up and he started playing football that way because he saw it on YouTube. Can you imagine if he had actual access to real life NFL game in front of him? Now he was European, but still the concept still applies, I think, to everyone. And I think it's really cool on that end. I do have a little pity for the guys having to go to the 12-hour flight and then play a game.
Yeah,
I know.
But Jordan Mailata was like, I don't feel bad for them at all. Like, they can get over it. I've done longer. It's fine. So I hope they look like they're having a good time down there.
Yeah, they do.
CJ Gardner-Johnson with that drum and
Absolutely.
the conga line. So, they look like they're having a good time, and I hope that it's a great ambassador trip for the league and for the Eagles. I mean, how sick would it be to one day go to Brazil and look at all these people walking around with Eagles hats or whatever? That's cool.
That is cool.
There's football and there's football.
That's true.
That's right.
And now they're going to understand both. That's
yes.
You're and right about that.
The Eagles are staying in a closer hotel to the stadium than the Packers. Packers have to commute like almost 2 hours.
Look at Tech with the Better's insider info.
The Eagles are closer to the stadium. This is an advantage.
It's a big advantage.
I think so.
I didn't know that, actually, Tech.
Yeah.
Now, Bri, have you been to Brazil?
I have not.
Me
no,
neither.
I've never been to South America.
No, me neither.
So I'm excited to hear what the guys think about it, because the only two people I know on the team. Obviously, Tanner McKee has been to Brazil. He studied there on a missions trip. And Britton Covey said he was in South America. Beyond that, I really didn't. But I don't think he's ever been to Brazil. He was in Peru. Britton was in Peru. So I think this is going to be a new experience for everyone. So I'm very excited to hear what they get into and, how the experience was like, what they ate. I'm a big,
yes.
What did you guys eat down there?
A foodie.
So I am pumped. And like I said, I hope it's a great experience for them. I know there was a lot of hubbub going on around it before they got down there with some players saying some things, which I feel like PR, but as an aside, I feel like PR should have gotten in front of that and told them not to do that.
Oh,
that's not my fault. That's not my job.
They were watching City of God. That's what happened. They saw that movie and they saw all what the gangs over there.
Unreal.
Yeah. I personally wouldn't have said that, but I also appreciate the authenticity. So who am I to complain? But I hope that when they're down there and they actually experience it, it's not as whatever their initial impression was. I hope that it's the best thing they can possibly experience.
And perceptions are typically, in my life experience, always different when you travel than what it actually is when you get there.
Oh yeah,
correct.
Usually for the better.
So we'll see. I'm excited to see how the crowd is as well.
Yes.
We're used to very rambunctious, very passionate fans here, obviously, in Philadelphia. I'm very curious to see how this is going to go fan wise in Brazil. I hope they match our freak.
I hope so too.
Yes.
I hope so too. Before we let you go, Bree, 2 bold predictions. 1, player of the game for the Eagles on Friday night, and 2, MVP of the Eagles season.
Ooh. Okay, so I don't know if these are going to be super bold predictions, but I just have this sneaking suspicion with this new Packers defense. As I'm looking at the Chiefs game, with this new Packers defense, I think that they're going to be so preoccupied with shutting down AJ Brown and Devontae that Saquon Barkley first touchdown of the game.
Love it!
Wow,
yeah.
I love that.
Touchdown of the game.
Yes.
And I think the Eagles are amped to give him that moment, right? Like they want him to have that. Like that will be their first initiative is to get Saquon his first touchdown.
Definitely.
So that's my first prediction of the game. And this is going to be lame, but I sincerely hope Jalen Hurts is the MVP of the Eagles season. He needs to return to that form that we saw, that we, watched him lead this team to the Super Bowl. We need that Jalen back.
Absolutely.
And so it's not necessarily a bold prediction, but it's the outcome that I think is the most important and the most critical for this team to be successful is Jalen Hurts being the MVP, because he darn well should be. So
absolutely. I completely agree. I would love to see him just get back to that Super Bowl star form where he was within 3 points of getting it done.
Yeah, he's got
I know.
He's a remarkable player, a remarkable guy, and the team has all the tools around him that any quarterback could ever want. Just ask Donovan McNabb about that.
Yeah.
He will tell you.
Yes.
On that note, Bree, thanks so much for joining us. We're excited for the bird season. Breland Moore, Fox 29, always a blast.
Yeah, we're going to have to have her back on during the bye week to discuss the first 4 games.
Absolutely.
Yes, Bree.
Just give me a call. You
Definitely.
got it.
And fantastic sports show, Monday through Friday, 11:30 p.m., Fox 29. And we'll talk to you and see you soon.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Need a better betting app? You need Rhythm.
Rhythm makes it easy to find AI-backed picks and player props for every single NFL, NBA, and game. You can build custom sports betting models or have AI build them for you and start getting recommended bets, score predictions, and more that will help you become a better bettor. Download Rhythm now and start getting free picks daily. Rhythm is the place for data-backed props and picks. RITHMM.
Rhythm is a proud partner of the Vet Alumni Podcast. Have a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. It's time for Prem's Picks.
These games are a blowout, a human lock. You can bet your children's unborn children on these games.
Prem's picks, MLB wrap-up.
MLB wrap-up, 23-19 overall after a 2-1 week last week. And I continue my streak of winning seasons.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Feeling good, Tek, because it started kind of rough in baseball.
Money.
It started rough in baseball.
It did.
But I persevered.
Yep, and you had a surge of winning weeks that took you over the hump.
Took me over the hump, and now we transition to my favorite pick season.
Yes.
The NFL. Here we are, Tek.
Yep.
Your week 1 NFL locks. First, Tek. We are going to an AFC South divisional matchup. The Houston Texans and young star C.J. Stroud visit Indianapolis to take on the Colts, and one Anthony Richardson returning to the field.
This is a good game.
It's a very good game.
Yep.
The Texans go in as 3-point favorites in Indy, and I say take the points. Houston, -3. They're going to cover that spread.
Yep.
I could see them actually winning this game by 10 or more.
Me too.
I think that spread is low, and that's a really solid pick, even though it's a road division game.
It's a little conservative, but it's week 1.
Yeah, it's week 1.
I think that's why.
But I like it. Houston, -3 in Indy, lock. Next, Tek, the Broncos are a team in transition. And you got Bo Nix, young quarterback. You have a lot of unknowns with Denver. It feels like you've had unknowns with Denver since John Elway left, with the exception of like a Tim Tebow blip on the radar. But they travel to the 12th man, Seattle, to take on the Seahawks, and the Seahawks are only 6-point favorites. Another game where I feel like the spread
They're a question mark team too.
They are, but I think Geno Smith at home, he's a veteran quarterback. They got Kenny Walker back there, solid running back. I really don't think the Broncos are going to win more than 5 games this year.
No.
I think they're a 5-12 football team, and I do not think that one of those 5 is in Seattle. No. I would take the 6 points and feel very comfortable with it. Seattle at home, -6 over the newly revamped, if you will, Broncos, who are revamped every year, it seems. John Elway just can't seem to get it right. Take that, -6, Seattle at home over the Broncos, lock. Lastly, Tek, we got another interesting game with, teams that are you kind of know what you got with the Buccaneers. You kind of don't know what you have with the Commanders. But the Commanders are going to Tampa to take on the Bucs, and the Bucs are 3.5-point favorites in this one.
Ooh.
And I think the Commanders actually come out and surprise everybody and get the win. I think that they cover the 3.5. I think even if they lose, they lose by maybe a field goal or 2 points.
Yes.
I say I think Jaden Daniels is going to be better than we expect.
Absolutely.
And I think that the Commanders have a chance to win that game. With Baker Mayfield, who is an average quarterback at best. And that's my third game is another road winner. So 2 road winners for you.
Right.
Going with an Eagles division opponent, but it doesn't matter because the Commanders will be 8-9 at best anyway.
Well, maybe.
Regardless, maybe he says
they could be improved.
Take the Commanders plus 3.5 at Tampa, lock. Let's recap, Tek. We got the Houston Texans going to play the Colts in Indy. Take them -3. We got the Broncos, the hapless Broncos, going to Seattle. Take the Seahawks -6. And lastly, Tek, a pick that might not be so popular around betting circles, but it's popular in this studio. The Commanders plus 3.5 at the Bucs. This has been the first edition of Prem's 2024 NFL picks.
It's game day. Go Birds.
Let's go.
We will see you next week.
Vet Alumni.